What's up, MetaNerdz? This video is all about the Venator-class Star Destroyer. It was manufactured by Kuat Drive Yards, the main ship provider of the Galactic Republic, with each one setting back the Grand Army 59 million credits. That's the equivalent of 2,950 Vulture droids, or 2 million credits more than a Victory-class destroyer. With a total length of 1,137 meters, or 3,730 feet, the Venator was as long as 90 ARC-170s, or 227 Rancors. It was 548 meters, or 1,798 feet wide, making it as wide as 14 Sandcrawlers. With a height of 268 meters, or 879 feet, from the lowest point to the very top of the bridge, this ship was 107 Wookiees tall. And to compare it to other capital ships, an Imperial-class Star Destroyer was 1.5 times longer than a Venator, but a Super Star Destroyer is nearly 17 times longer. Rebel ship comparisons put the Venator at 7.5 times longer than a CR-90 Corvette, and about the same length as an MC-80 Home 1, Admiral Akbar's flagship. Even though it was enormous, it had a relatively fast speed of 975 kilometers per hour, or 605 miles per hour, roughly the same speed as an X-Wing. It could achieve this speed via its 8 drive engines, 4 primary engines, 2 secondary engines, and 2 tertiary engines. It had a Class 1 hyperdrive and a backup Class 15 hyperdrive. This meant the Venator could jump 60,000 light years with a single jump. To power this enormous ship, it used a Hypermatter Annihilator reactor, and this was located directly under the bridge, which is in theory the most protected part of the ship. This reactor could annihilate 40,000 tons of hypermatter fuel per second, though it most likely did not operate at this full capacity all the time. It could carry an enormous amount of cargo and ships, with a normal loadout being 420 fighters in total, with 192 V-Wings, or V-19 Torrent starfighters, 192 Eta II class interceptors, and 36 ARC-170s. For planetary invasions, it also carried 40 LAAT gunships and 24 ATTEs. And what is really interesting is that it also had on board a prefabricated garrison base that it could deliver to a planet's surface for long-term battles. To release all these ships, it had hangar bays on each side, but it also had a bay on the top that could open up to the flight deck. But this opening left the ship very vulnerable, and so it was not continued into later Star Destroyer designs. To help protect the Venator, there was an incredibly powerful shield generator, the same one that was used by the Victory-class Star Destroyer. And this thing was also packed full of weaponry. There were 8 heavy turbo laser cannons, 2 medium dual turbo laser cannons, 52 point defense laser cannons, and count 'em, 6 tractor beams. Very important, it also had 4 heavy proton torpedo tubes, which carried a combined 16 torpedoes. Those 8 heavy dual turbo laser turrets are said to be able to hit a target as far away as 10 light minutes away, equivalent to just over 1 mile. To power all of these weapons, the Venator could redirect all of its energy from the reactor to these turbo lasers, making it able to unleash a volley of seemingly endless fire. And this option was very important when you were trying to break through Separatist blockades. As per the direction of General Skywalker, SPHAs were put in the ventral hangar bays of Venators in the Open Circle fleet, a tactic that proved quite useful during the Battle of Coruscant. The Venator was commanded via this unique dual-bridge tower. On the port side, or left when looking forward, was the Starfighter command bridge, and the one on the starboard was the helm of the command bridge. The port side would act like an air traffic control center, and the starboard side would navigate the Venator and coordinate its fire. This dual command bridge was rare, but it was also used on the later Secutor-class destroyer. Most of the Imperial Star Destroyers did keep the dual crew pits that were sunken below a walkway that led to a panoramic view of the destroyer's surroundings. On top of each bridge there were hyperwave communication and scanner modules that performed the same function as those large globes on the Imperial-class Star Destroyers. And every Venator was slapped with this red coat of paint to declare that it had diplomatic immunity reserved exclusively for Republic ships, something we see in the Consular class and Delta 7. When the Kaminoans started their production of the Clone Army, Kuat Drive Yards was contacted to construct all the vehicles, and they took some design inspiration from the Mandalorian Neo-Crusader fleet that flew thousands of years before the events of the Clone Wars. It was intended to be used for ship-to-ship combat, but the contents of its massive hangar bays proved to be a feature that Jedi pilots often used to change the tide of battle. Throughout the Clone Wars, Republic Command realized that the Venator was both powerful enough to lead assaults on Separatist-controlled worlds, while also being quick enough to hunt down individual ships or blockade runners. They could also help with planetary invasions with their 2,000 troops on board, not counting its enormous crew of 7,400 members. But it should be pointed out that Venators cannot land directly on a planet without special landing strips like these, because they lack landing gear feet which were found in the Acclimator. By the time the Republic became the Empire, Venators were still being used, And it is from a Venator that we see Vader and Palpatine viewing the Death Star's construction at the end of episode 3. These Venators lost their red paint in favor for Imperial Grey. And it would be Imperial-class Star Destroyers that eventually phased out the Venator, a ship that took some visual cues from the Victory class. Larger Imperator and Tector-class destroyers became more preferred, as they were more aligned with the Tarkin doctrine, which said that the Empire could best rule through terror imposed through enormous and powerful battle stations, and the Venator relied too heavily on its fleet of starfighters. They didn't destroy the Venators though, and most of them fell into the hands of Moffs, who would use them to defend their own worlds, and many were used at Imperial training academies. Venators were also captured by Mandalorians, and used to protect Mandalore from a Zon Consortium fleet. Some were used to protect supply lines to the second Death Star. Whatever happened to that project? And then the last time we see Venators being used is during the evacuation of Dak, the Mon Cala homeworld, 137 years after the Battle of Yavin. Well, that's where the history of the Venator ends, but you definitely want to hear these cool facts and behind the scenes stuff. The game Star Wars Empire at War was originally meant to have Venator-class Star Destroyers in it, and they actually popped up in some promotional screenshots and even a demo, but they were eventually cut from the final version of the game. Fans of this ship love it so much, there were actually modded versions of the game created, which finally allowed for the Venator class to be played. And the engine room of a Venator class is actually designed off of the gravity control system used in an SDF-1 Macross, a transforming spacecraft from the Macross anime. In Latin, the word Venator means hunter. And before we go, I want to talk about these weapons on the side of the Venator, these cannons that we saw used during the Battle of Coruscant. There's a lot of debate online as to what these weapons are, with a lot of people thinking that they're of the 52-point defense laser cannons. But I don't think that's true because they seem to fire shells, similar to rounds fired from the mass accelerator of an LAAT or an ATTE, and that makes me think that these weapons are very similar to an AV-7 anti-vehicle cannon, of course without the giant legs. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. And that's it for the Venator-class Destroyer. If you liked it, go ahead and hit that like button, and be sure to leave a comment down below if I missed any cool facts, or if you have a suggestion for future videos. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at MetaNerdz so you can see us build Star Wars props and cosplays, along with some other cool Star Wars stuff. If you want to help support this channel, check out the description below for our Amazon store and our Patreon. And be sure to subscribe, because we're making videos like this every single day. But more important than all that, remember, not all of Skywalker's ideas were bad, and the Force will be with you, always.